Hey guys, it's me, Tantacles, here with another tier list. Today, I'm going to be making the Legend of Dragoon casual playthrough tier list. These are the characters that will get you through the game most easily without grinding, without min-maxing. If you haven't played this game yet, really cool RPG on the PS1, and I'm going to try my best not to give any spoilers, but of course there are going to be a couple, so just be aware. Dart is the Fire Dragoon, and he's going to go into the A tier. Now, it doesn't really matter where I rate him, because honestly, you have to have him in the party anyway, but he's in the A tier. His speed is reasonable, he has good magic power, his Dragoon transformation is very powerful, and at the end of the game he gets Blazing Dynamo, which is one of the best additions in the game, and you're likely to get that just from playing the game, so it's very good. His best weapon is the Soul Eater, which has incredible power level. However, it takes your health, so you have to wear the life ring to really use it effectively, which takes away from his usefulness, because what he wants is more speed. So that's why he ends up in A tier instead of an S tier. If he could get more speed and use the Soul Eater without losing health, then he'd be in the S tier easily. Next on the list is Lavitz. Lavitz is your Lance user, your Wind Dragoon. He is in the S tier for a casual playthrough. His primary reason for being an S tier is Rose Storm. That's his level 2 Dragoon magic, and it halves all damage to the entire party for 3 turns. Not 3 of Lavitz's turns, 3 of the party's turns. So no matter who you're using, they'll get huge utility from this. It doesn't matter what type of damage you receive, it halves it. His biggest weakness is that he's very slow, but that actually suits him well with Rose Storm because it means that he has time to take advantage of that reduced damage. He also has great HP and good additions that allow him to take advantage of physical attacks if you don't feel like Dragooning him. Next is Shanna, and Shanna is going into the A tier just below Dart. For the period that you have Shanna, she is your only healer. She's the only one in the party with revival magic, and while that becomes less important later when you can just get items very cheaply to revive people, when you're playing with Shanna in her Dragoon form, it's very important. Her level 1 magic also gives a full heal, so if you're at 1 HP, you can heal right back up to full with no issues. Adding to that, her speed is very high, so she'll usually be able to get in that heal before the enemy can kill your character. She has 2 weaknesses. The first is that she uses bows, so she can't do damage with additions. She's completely locked out of the addition system. The second is that she's not tanky at all. She's one-shot by a ton of enemy moves, and it really sucks. Next on the list is Rose, and Rose is very useful in the early game, but really falls off later in the game, and you don't get her final weapon until right before the final boss, so it just isn't that useful. Because of that, Rose goes into the B tier. In the early game, her Astral Drain is priceless, as it can act as a heal and can be offensive, but because it has such low power, it just falls off later in the game. And her level 3 magic is an insta-kill, and it doesn't work on bosses, so she's just not the best magic user to use on bosses. Next up is Hashel, and Hashel is one that I had to think about for a while because in my first game, I didn't use him at all. But ultimately, he's extremely useful, and I wish I had used him because he would have made my game so much easier. I'm going to put him into the S tier. He has a few things going for him. Number 1, great strength and additions. Number 2, he is the lightning element, which has no weaknesses. It's only strong against itself. And number 3, he has the highest speed of all of the male characters. He's a great choice to put all of your speed enhancing items on because he will run circles around the enemies and often get 2 or 3 attacks in before they can move. Next up is Albert. Albert is just a Lavitz clone. I will not tell you why, but he falls into the same place as Lavitz, and when he's available, he gets some of the best additions in the game. His big weakness, of course, still is his speed, and his final additions are actually quite hard to get through all the way, but if you're able to get through his additions, he's extremely powerful. He's also a good person to put your speed enhancing items on, and that'll put him about at parity with Hashel, Meru, and Shanna in terms of speed. The reason that I put so much emphasis on his additions is later in the game, magic tends to fall off, and so having people that can do a lot of damage while not in Dragoon form is very important. Albert is one of the 2 characters that can do that the best, along with Hashel with minimal grinding. Next up is Miranda, and unfortunately, once you get to the part where Miranda joins the party, and she's a Shanna clone by the way, she is just not that useful, so she goes into the C tier. At the point of the game where you get Shanna, you don't need heavy healing because you can just use Rose Storm to avoid half of your damage, and because she's so frail, she often gets one-shot before she can actually heal your party. Add to the fact that she can't do that much magic damage on her own and has no additions, and that makes her just a pretty ineffectual character by the end of the game. Meru is next, and she is my favorite character in the game, so it hurts me to do this, but for a casual playthrough, I'm going to put her into the B tier just above Rose. She can dish out a ton of damage with her additions if you can get her all the way up, but because you get her so late in the game, You're unlikely, unless you grind a ton, to get her best edition. That being said, her best edition puts her at parity with a bunch of the other characters, so if you are going to do that grind, it's very worth it. And here's the other problem. She is just as frail, if not more frail, than Miranda and Shanna, so you end up losing her a lot before she can do what she's really good at, which is giving you massive heals. That being said, she is fast, so one of the things you can do is have her attack, and then subsequently you can have her defend. But unlike a game like Final Fantasy X, where you have your turn order up in the top right of the screen, you have no idea who's going next. You sort of have to guess, and that makes her a lot less powerful. I think if you could know who was going next definitively, it would be a lot easier to use her. That being said, I've used her in every single playthrough of this game. I love Meru. I think she's extremely useful. She's extremely useful, but requires either a lot of grind or a ton of special equipment to stop her from getting one-shotted. I do personally love putting all my speed boosting equipment on her and watching her get 3 turns in between everyone else's moves. That's fun. And the final character is Congol, who will go into the D tier for a casual playthrough. Now, Congol actually is pretty great. I used him in my last playthrough of this game because I just have never used him, and I decided to do it about 3 months ago. But in a casual playthrough, you are likely to get Congol's Dragoon Spirit extremely late, to the point where he's extremely underleveled because you haven't had his Dragoon Spirit for the entire time. And you're typically not going to level up his additions in a casual playthrough until you actually have his Dragoon Spirit. I mean, you can, it's just you're not going to. That being said, he has a great HP pool, which makes him extremely tanky even against magical attacks, and he has a great attack stat, but his best addition only has a 300 multiplier, so you're not going to get as much overall damage from him as you would from, say, someone Albert or Dart, especially since his speed is so low. It is in the toilet, and that is his biggest weakness. You need to give him speed boosting items just to get him up to Dart's base level, which makes him kind of trash if you're playing a regular game with no knowledge of the mechanics. I would suggest you save him for your second playthrough. But he's super fun to play. I love his character. I love his art. I'm sorry that I have to put him in the D tier, but I do, and it hurts, doesn't it? Well, that is my tier list. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.